The King's Avatar, Chapter 1200 Death's Door Opens Wide, Audio Source, WorsharWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1200, Death's Door Opens Wide. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Shadow Flames dealt primarily dark element damage, with supporting fire element damage. However, no one would focus on the damage for Warlock skills. The control skills, and status effects inflicted by Warlocks were the most uncomfortable to deal with. Shadow Flames was no different. Apart from the first wave of health this skill seared off, it would inflict a 6-second long flames effect, a damaging status that did damage every 2 seconds. This status damage also interrupted chants. The wave swords of Spellblades were instant, but wave formations were chanted. With Shadow Flames, a Spellblade's rhythm would be heavily disrupted. But when was this Shadow Flame unleashed? Everyone was so focused on Hallis wave swords and wave formations that no one ever noticed. Xiang Yuanwei was also shocked, suddenly afraid of being too reckless. But if he didn't charge, Wei Chen wouldn't let this chance go. An explosion of curse arrows shot out from the flower bush, clearly having been charged for a long time. Shadow Flame didn't affect the character's movement, so Xiang Yuanwei hurriedly had Halli's dodge, hoping to throw his own attack back as he did, but that was when he realized that, out of all the instant cast wave swords, only Waltzing Wave Sword was available. Waltzing Wave Sword, as the name implied, didn't strike in a straight line. In a team competition, it could often create unexpected effects, but right now it was a 1v1 fight with just a single target. No matter what arc the attack made, the destination was the same. Apart from being able to use it to ambush others in specific situations, Waltzing Wave Sword would just be giving the opponent ample time to dodge when fighting face-to-face. However, apart from this sword, the other wave sword skills were all in cooldown. Xiang Yuanwei immediately realized that he had most likely fell into a rather terrifying trap. His wave sword skills were almost all on cooldown, and his wave formations were under restriction from Shadow Flames. These 6 seconds were purposefully created by his opponent, so how could the other let him go so easily? Even as he struggled with himself for this split second, Waltzing Wave Sword was still sent out. With the attack, flowers and grass flew everywhere, and it left a clear arc across the ground. If you couldn't dodge that, then you really didn't have any right to stand on this stage. Xiang Yuanwei really had no choice. He didn't have the time to adjust himself, so he could only strike back like that to give his opponent a little pressure, even if it was minuscule. And then, retreat. Xiang Yuanwei hurriedly had Halli's back away, wanting to get some distance. He knew that danger could come from anywhere around him. His opponent didn't just hide his character, but used such a simple action to lure him into action and strategically beat him down. Sly old fox. Xiang Yuanwei commented on Wei Chen as he had his character escape. Speaking of which, he had thought that his opponent would be Yi Zhu, and his head was filled with the strange ever-changing style of the unspecialized. Yet he had ended up meeting a Warlock, and an endlessly shameless Warlock, too. Halli's was continuously moving backwards and Xiang Yuanwei didn't dare have his character turn. He still had to keep an eye on what this shameless Warlock would do to try and disrupt him. Yet, what was most surprising, was that the other didn't do anything. The flora was completely silent, as if Windward formation had suddenly disappeared. What was this about? After jumping back twice again, Xiang Yuanwei had Halli's stop his retreat, confused. The audience wanted to cry. Xiang Yuanwei couldn't see what Windward formation was doing in the bushes, but they could. Windward formation, this shameless Warlock, was currently flat on the ground, charging up a spell. Players familiar with Warlock class immediately recognized the endlessly gathering energy. Death's Door. This was the Warlock's level 70 ultimate, Death's Door. Using the cover from the terrain as well as a psychological understanding of his opponent, Wei Chen fearlessly and directly started chanting a time and mana-consuming skill, Death's Door. Attack already. Many members of the audience was already shouting desperately. Even the members of Miracle, Xiang Yuanwei's teammates, had stood up, fists clenched. However, Xiang Yuanwei had his Hallies carefully, cautiously observe his surroundings as he inched forwards towards the bushes Windward formation was hiding in, sword raised. Caution was good, but caution at a time like this just made the audience so desperate they wanted to curse. It was only until the bushes Windward formation was hiding in were no longer sufficient to cover up the miasma gathering at the tip of Death's hand that Xiang Yuanwei realized something was wrong. If he still didn't know what this was by then he couldn't be called a pro player at all. Run. Too late. Death's Door had a very wide area of effect. In addition, Windward formation was a warlock with a terrifying attack range. This Death's Door wouldn't give him any chance to run. He'd have to go for it. Xiang Yuanwei was quick at coming to a decision. If he couldn't run, then he would advance and find a way to interrupt the skill. Death's Door was a skill that had to be maintained even after being activated. They could be interrupted any time from when they began chanting to the end of the skill. Go! The audience roared as one. They all felt that at this distance, with the Spellblade's attack range, there really wasn't anything to be afraid of. Xiang Yuanwei thought the same. Hallies charged forwards, magic pulsing around his blade. Attack! The short sword swung out. Boom! A thunderous noise that seemed to pierce dimensions boomed. A black, spinning door that led to another world rotated slowly, set up directly in front of Hallies. Holy crap! Countless audience members fell out of their seats. This Death's Door was actually placed between the two. This way, if Xiang Yuanwei had realized what was happening and turned to run like a noob, then he might really be able to run out of Death's Door's range. However, he was a pro player, and his experience told him that running was impossible, so he tried to close in to interrupt and ran directly into the Door of Death. The Death's Door was probably delighted and surprised. It probably never had such easy prey before in its life. Its miasma tentacles barely stretched out of the door and were already at Hallis' shoulders. Xiang Yuanwei didn't even have the time to attempt to dodge before he was caught by the tentacles of miasma. Then, he was easily pulled into the door. Death's Door came quickly and left quickly, too. In a 1v1, Death's Door was primarily focused on damage. As for its control abilities, warlocks had to continuously maintain Death's Door, so even if they trapped a target, they couldn't send out other attacks. However, Death's Door's attack, coming from another, demonic dimension, wasn't anything easy to deal with. Apart from the damage, the target would be thrown about and disoriented. Chaotic rain, hexagram prison, grasping phantoms. Wei Chen very calmly, with a not all that fast hand speed, sent out the skills he had long since prepared one by one. Hallies was inflicted with countless negative status effects. He was sometimes confused, sometimes bound, sometimes controlled, sometimes imprisoned. Wei Chen had a very good rhythm to his attacks. If a veteran like him couldn't even control his own rhythm, then there was no point in him continuing to fight on the pro scene. No matter how experienced, he wouldn't be able to utilize it. Xiang Yuanwei refused to give up, but his struggles never managed to turn the tides. Hallies still fell in the end. Wei Chen won and Xiang Yuanwei left the stage, depressed. His heart was filled with what-ifs. If he did this, if he only did that. However, there were no ifs in Competition. These ifs could all be turned into experience and help the player grow. Wei Chen was naturally delighted when he came back. He took the boos from the audience's cheers, walking as if he was 10 years younger. What other result could you expect with me at the helm? Quote, after returning to the bench, he accepted everyone's praises and complimented himself without any semblance of modesty. Amazing. Ye Xiu didn't even send him one word of mockery. What's up today? How come you're being so nice to each other? Wuxia Chen Guo was surprised. It was downright unnatural that Ye Xiu and Wei Chen didn't mock each other. Ha! Ye Xiu chucked, but didn't explain. Hearing these praises, Wei Chen took his fill of boasting, and when he had enough, he shook his head. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Gazing at his retreating form, everyone was stunned. Something like that was something everyone should have dealt with before the match. Only one individual battle had gone by, it hadn't been long. He didn't win as easily as it might seem. Ye Xiu suddenly said. Chen Guo was confused. He didn't say a single taunt for the entire match. Ye Xiu sighed. Chen Guo continued to be stunned. Gazing at Wei Chen's retreating figure, Chen Guo felt as though she saw a well-hidden exhaustion in his form, despite the arrogance he had come off stage with. As for over here, I'm going up, then. Su Mucheng stood. She was the second player to go up on Happy's side. Good luck, everyone said. It's Su Mucheng. Over at Miracle, the unlucky three looked to their former teammate's name, flashing across the screen, and then saw Su Mucheng walk towards the stage. Leave it to me. Wang Zhe seemed very confident. He had been arranged in the individual competition and had hoped to be set against Su Mucheng. Good luck. The time to prove yourself has come. Quote, He Ming said to Wang Zhe. When Wang Zhe was in excellent era, he couldn't count as a core player. Pros in his position all had the desire to prove themselves. However, excellent era was no longer here, and he didn't have to fight for his position in the team anymore. Instead, he had to prove himself to the entire pro circle. The all-star level ex-teammate of his, Su Mucheng, was the best opponent he could ask for. It was because this sort of clash gave people something to talk about and was very eye-catching. I have an ace up my sleeve. Wang Zhe went up, full of confidence. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1201. An ace that isn't cool at all. Audio source, Wuxia Chapter 1201. An ace that isn't cool at all. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Wang Zhe hadn't been a senior player during his time at Excellent Era. When Ye Xiu was still there, he had been a rookie, appearing a few times as a sub starting Season 8, before following Excellent Era to relegations. Team Excellent Era's players were rather sought after, but at that time, the relegated Excellent Era hadn't given up yet. Drawing in thunderclaps, Xiao Shichen steadied their hearts, and as a result, the vast majority of Team Excellent Era's players chose to stay. Wang Zhe was one of them. However, unlike his other teammates who had the choice to accept an invite or stay with the team, he had no choices because no one had showed any interest in him. To Wang Zhe, this was a slap to his face. Even though he didn't feel like he was particularly amazing, he still had confidence in his own skill, yet no one was interested in him. Wang Zhe cared quite a lot about this issue. At that time, he had been in the competitive scene for 2 years, but he failed to attract enough attention in his few appearances on stage. He very much wanted to be acknowledged. But in the third season of his professional career, what made him even more depressed was that the powerhouse Excellent Era had actually lost to the Internet Cafe Team Happy in the Challenger League. That moment had been a dark one for everyone in Team Excellent Era. After Excellent Era disbanded and the team members parted ways, Wang Zhe had been quite terrified because he hadn't received any invites when Excellent Era had been relegated the previous season. And in their last season, Excellent Era had been playing in the Challenger League. The attention towards them had been limited, and he had truly feared that no one would be interested in him. Wang Zhe had hoped for an invite, but none came. He had watched as his teammates left him one after the other, watched as Excellent Era collapsed, and watched as someone took over. At that time, the players who had yet to leave all received invites from the new boss, who called for them to hang on for one more year and return to the Pro League anew. Wang Zhe remembered clearly that Chu Fei, who had just been promoted from the Training camp, decisively chose to stay. Idiot, Wang Zhe had thought to himself. That season, if there was one person who was particularly eye-catching in Excellent Era, it would be the new rookie Chu Fei. He was a youth with a bright future ahead of him. He didn't need to worry that he would have nowhere to go. However, Chu Fei had actually believed in the new investors' plans and chose to stay. But what did the new Excellent Era have? Su Mucheng had left along with her Dancing Rain. Sun Xiang and One Autumn Leaf had left. Xiao Shichen and Life Extinguisher had returned to their mother team. The remaining Excellent Era was no longer a powerhouse. How could breezing through the Challenger League be so easy? Wang Zhe had already wasted a year. He had no intentions of wasting away in the Challenger League. Unfortunately, he still hadn't received any invites. Staying was at least one path that would let him continue as a pro player. Wang Zhe wasn't willing, but he also didn't want to resort to this last straw. Luckily, Team Miracle came around and showed interest in him. Wang Zhe didn't hesitate to pick his new team. In his eyes, being able to remain in the Pro League was better than anything else. Thus, Wang Zhe joined Team Miracle. Afterwards, Shen Jian joined too, cursing and swearing after wandering around in a circle. Shen Jian's situation had been better than his. He had received invites from the start, but he wasn't able to negotiate well enough with any of them, leaving Team Miracle as his only choice left. Along with feelings of helplessness for not getting recognized for his talents, he and Wang Zhe were packaged together and sent to Team Miracle. Over there, He Ming was waiting for them with his status as the core player, after being traded away for Xiao Shichen when Excellent Era relegated and fighting in the Pro League for a year. The three were former teammates, who had gathered together again at Team Miracle. No one had been delighted at that. Instead, a feeling of being cheated had sprung up in their hearts. But they had already fallen into the hole. If they wanted to get out, they'd have to rely upon themselves. Each carrying their own thoughts and hopes, the three began the journey with Team Miracle. Wang Zhe hoped that he would be able to get recognition for his skill this season. Even if Team Miracle was relegated in the end, he would at least have invites waiting for him. His opponent this round was Su Mucheng, an all-star. If he could beat her, it would be definitive proof of his skill. And towards this former teammate of his, he felt like he knew the key to winning. After the 5-second countdown, the match began. Map: Desolate Town 7. Desolate Town was a series of maps. If all 17 maps were put together, the map would be a complete town. But in reality, especially in a 1v1, the complete town was too big, so it was split into 17 parts. These 17 parts were of different sizes. Desolate Town 7 was the smallest among them, suitable for a 1v1. As former teammates, the three from Miracle knew which maps Su Mucheng favored. Wang Zhe mainly wanted to bump into Su Mucheng today, so he had prepared a map specifically for her. Desolate Town 7 was a map that Su Mucheng was good at, and as her former teammate, he knew how Su Mucheng liked to play in this map. This was why Wang Zhe had chosen it. He wasn't hoping his opponent was unfamiliar with the map, but rather familiar with it. That way he would have a greater understanding of his opponent. The two characters headed towards each other from their spawn corners. Wang Zhe's sharpshooter was called Kashiban, a character provided by Team Miracle. It was worse than his former Team Excellent era character, and he had spent a lot of effort to adjust it to his preferences and habits. Kashiban moved forward quickly, looking far into the distance onto the clock tower in the town. The clock tower was this map's highest point. By seizing the high ground, one would have nearly complete coverage of the map. Desolate Town 7 was the desolate map with the most narrow and winding alleys, which wasn't too favorable for long-range gunners. Su Mucheng had been forced to be good at this map because too many opponents wanted to utilize this map to restrict the Alliance's #1 launcher. As a result, Su Mucheng had to specifically practice and study this map until it actually became one of her best maps. The clock tower was a location that Su Mucheng frequently occupied. She had the high ground there, allowing her to easily catch her opponent's position. Then, she could utilize her long-ranged capabilities to attack from afar. It was one of her most used tactics. But not today, Wang Zhe thought to himself. Their relationship as teammates was mutual. Since he had chosen this map, Su Mucheng wouldn't be so stupid as to go to it. She would intentionally avoid the spot she liked the most because her teammate knew about it. Once she gave up on her usual plan, what would she do? According to her habits and preferences, Wang Zhe bravely made a prediction. He was currently heading over to verify it. He believed that his prediction should be correct. As a gunner class 2, Wang Zhe trusted that his understanding of Su Mucheng's thought process was very thorough. Kashiban traveled through the small alleyway. Wang Zhe's strategy was very clear. But from time to time, he would still take a glance at the clock tower. After all, it was possible that Su Mucheng would be stubborn. However, Wang Zhe would be even happier if that were the case. The route he chose was a dead spot for the clock tower. If Su Mucheng went to the clock tower, he would give her a big surprise. A flawless plan. Wang Zhe felt satisfied with himself. But at this moment, Su Mucheng appeared. Utilizing aerial launcher, with a few ups and downs, she landed on the clock tower. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Thinking that she wouldn't go over there, Wang Zhe nearly exposed himself. Luckily, Wang Zhe noticed her actions in time and hastily rolled to a dead angle in the clock tower's view. So she actually went there. Wang Zhe calculated the time. For Dancing Rain to make it onto the clock tower right now, she had to have taken a straight line to there, not wasting any time. Was she not afraid that he would take advantage of that location? Wang Zhe was confident, but he didn't think Su Mucheng was stupid. As a result, when he saw Su Mucheng suddenly make what seemed to be a brainless move, Wang Zhe stopped to think about it. If Su Mucheng understood his intentions for picking this map but still made this choice, what was she plotting? There were two possibilities. First, she didn't think much of Wang Zhe's strength, so she did as she always did. Second, she guessed how Wang Zhe would respond, so she had set up a trap and was intentionally luring the snake out of its hole. Su Mucheng wasn't stupid, nor was she an arrogant person, so it was most likely the second possibility. Setting up a trap and luring him out. Wang Zhe smirked. This was the Su Mucheng that he knew. It was just that this time, he wouldn't fall for it. Su Mucheng perhaps knew where the dead angles were from this clock tower, but did she know which of these dead angles allowed for direct attacks to the clock tower? Wang Zhe didn't think Su Mucheng knew. because only long-ranged classes had the range to reach her from those spots, and very few long-ranged players would choose this map. As for Sumo Chung, she had never encountered a long-ranged opponent on this map. This wasn't Wang Zhe guessing. He had looked through all of Sumo Chung's data on this map. Detailed and thorough analysis, understanding, and preparation. These were Wang Zhe's trump cards. Perhaps they weren't very cool, but they were practical. Dancing Rain was still looking around from up on the clock tower, or perhaps she was guessing where Wang Zhe would attack from. No need. Wang Zhe smiled. He swiped his mouse, and Kashiban readied for a thunder snipe. Sharpshooters had lower range than launches. Only thunder snipe was the exception. However, Wang Zhe didn't want to attack from too far away in this situation, otherwise Sumo Chung would have time to react and dodge it. The sniping spot he had chosen was the perfect distance. At this range, if she didn't know AEAD of time, by the time she heard the sound of the trigger, it would be too late to dodge. Even more so in a situation where Sumo Chung couldn't even see where it was coming from. Trying to react just based on sound was even more impossible. Dancing Rain's forehead and long hair could be seen clearly through the tenfold magnified sniper scope. Gunshot. A spurt of fresh blood flowed out from that forehead, instantly covering his scoped view with red. TSK, this type of attack should just instant kill her. Wang Zhe sighed. After using the skill, he retracted his sniper rifle. Huh? What's that? Wang Zhe saw a bright flame in the sky spiraling towards him. Rate translation Quayan Chapter
The King's Avatar Chapter 1202 Familiar Rhythm Audio Source WuShoWorldAudiobook.com Chapter 1202 Familiar Rhythm Translator Gnome Yummy Editor Gnome Yummy. This is Wang Zhe panicked for a moment, but he quickly calmed down again. Judging from the flight path of this whirling flame, it couldn't hit his position no matter what. At this moment, a gunshot sounded. Bang! After a gunshot, there was the sound of an impact. The spinning flame in the air vibrated, but it wasn't extinguished. It now flew forward at a higher speed, and after this collision, there was a clear change in the flame's trajectory. Originally, it had been unable to reach Kashiban's position, but now, it was enough. Boom! There was a sudden roar in the sky. Wang Zhe had long figured out what this was, but he hadn't thought that Sumo Chung would have such an outrageous technique. After being hit by the thunder snipe, she instantly predicted Kashiban's position. And then right after being sniped, while her body still wasn't stable, she was able to immediately launch a heat-seeking missile. And then because this missile wasn't able to fly a far enough distance, she accurately fired another shot to support and extend the range of this missile. There was another important point here. Dancing Rain normally used a hand cannon, which launched powerful cannon shots that were impossible to aim with such precision. This meant that after firing the missile, she must have switched to Dancing Rain to use a gun. How was Sumo Chung this strong? As her former teammate, Wang Zhe thought that he had studied Sumo Chung enough, but he had no idea that Sumo Chung's technique was even more terrifying than he imagined. The howling heat-seeking missile fell toward him. Although Wang Zhe was already frantically controlling Kashisan to dodge, the shockwaves from the mushroom cloud created by the missile's impact had a wide range. Kashisan was unable to avoid the explosion and was sent flying against a wall. Boom, boom, boom. The attacks of Launcher Dancing Rain came flying from the clock tower. Occupy the high ground, capture the opponent's position, fire from an extremely long distance. All of this was Sumo Chung's familiar rhythm, and it was a rhythm that Wang Zhe had specifically studied, but now, he still fell into it. Dodge. Wang Zhe desperately controlled his character, entering one of the clock tower's dead angles. It's no use. Even though it was a dead angle, Sumo Chung used all sorts of methods to send her firepower there. The AoE skills of a launcher allowed her to somewhat disregard the precision of her attacks. As long as they landed close enough, they could deal a lot of damage and restrict the target. I can't hide in a dead angle. I have to move and shake her off. But isn't this the rhythm that every one of Suma Chung's victims on this map would fall into? Amidst the roaring cannon fire, Wang Zi hesitated. What to do? He had no plan. He hadn't prepared for any events deviating from the script he had imagined. He had been completely caught off guard by how Suma Chung had instantly determined his position from his sneak attack. For this match, Wang Zi's original plan was to use accurate sneak attacks to snipe dancing range shot after shot. But now, after only one shot, his position was exposed. All he heard were cannon shots, all he saw was fire. Where could he go? Wang Zi originally thought he knew this map very well, but now it was all fuzzy in his mind, the various routes all tangling together, preventing him from finding the exit path among them. But if he just let his character stand here, he could only watch his health bar steadily exploding away. Wang Zi had Kashisan charge out, but should he continue to figure out a way to hide and dodge, or should he turn and fight directly? Wang Zi still wasn't certain, and he didn't have the time to reason things out. On this map, Suma Chung's attack rhythm was extremely skilled. Whether Wang Zi ran or counterattacked, she had enough experience and technique to respond. Ace card. Did Suma Chung not have one on this map? And it was the exact same as Wang Zi's, the most simple, familiarity. Familiar map, familiar attack rhythm. Wang Zi's response didn't pose any difficulty for her at all. With all her skill at her fingertips, she bombarded him. And Wang Zi seemed to have fallen into a battle for survival. He wasn't acting like he was trying to achieve victory, he was just trying to survive under the cannon fire. The match had already lost its suspense from the moment Wang Zi revealed the position of Kashisan. Individual competition round 2, Happy 1. Beautiful. Chen Guo energetically welcomed Suma Chung as she came off stage. Who knows what the opponent thinking, picking one of your best and most familiar maps, how stupid. The fruits of victory were in hand, and Chen Guo wanted to make it known. As Suma Chung's superfan, Chen Guo knew which maps she was good at, and she recognized Desolate Town 7. She'd even tried to imitate Suma Chung's playstyle on this map. He's not stupid, it's just that I'm not stupid either. Suma Chung laughed. In any case, we won. Chen Guo was proud. Wang Zi, coming off stage, was in extremely low spirits. He had prepared thoroughly for this match, he had been confident, but it ended up like this? His strategy was still only on the first step when it received a headache-inducing attack, and he had been attacked from there until the end, blasted upon the ground. He Ming and Shen Jian knew the hard work Wang Zi had put into preparing for this match. Seeing his disappointment now, they too were upset. But this was competition. Everyone worked hard, but in the end, there was always one side that would fail. I was still too overconfident, Wang Zi said with a bitter smile. I thought I understood the opponent's strength, that I had a trump card that could get me victory. But I never thought that, under circumstances I don't understand, the opponent improved even further. This is why glory is limitless. The unfortunate trio lamented, in a heavy atmosphere. Captain, I'm going up. Right then, Miracle's third individual player had already stood up, Miracle's launcher, Guo Xiao. Yes, Guo Xiao, a name that sounded arrogant. Before the arrival of these players from old Excellent Era, he had been the core player of this new team. An arrogant name, a position as core player, but Guo Xiao wasn't that kind of person. When experienced players joined, he happily gave up his position as core and captain. Passionate, with energy and ideals, Guo Xiao was a glory youth that had longed to play in the professional scene. And now, he had finally raised his sails to set forth on this journey. I wonder who my opponent is. Guo Xiao lifted his head to look at the projection screen. He carried this kind of excitement for every match. The screen quickly displayed the names for the third battle of the individual round. Happy, Yishu, Lord Grimm. Excellent. Guo Xiao was even more excited. He Ming and the others exchanged looks, smiling bitterly. What an innocent youth, he really has no idea of the terror and cruelty of the pro scene. Good luck! The three still said some encouraging words, but in their hearts they already had no hopes for this match. Don't worry, seniors. Guo Xiao gave the three of them a thumbs up. Go, go, you have to win. Against their true thoughts, the three cheered him on. Guo Xiao went on stage, and on the other end Yishu was already ready. Log on, enter map. This is great, I actually have the chance to fight Senior Yishu. Quote. As soon as the characters finished loading, Guo Xiao couldn't wait any longer and began expressing his feelings. Send your best. Yishu never refused to interact with anyone on stage. Don't worry, Senior. Guo Xiao shouted. Off stage, He Ming and the other two face-bombed. Why are you telling the opponent not to worry? Yishu sent a smiley face emoji, and Lord Grimm rushed forward. The map was Desolate Town 28. In a 1v1, there was some amount of cover, but not many twists and turns, which made it rather suitable for a launcher. Guo Xiao's map choice wasn't out of the ordinary. Yishu didn't sidestep, he directly charged forth, and quickly saw that the opponent was doing the same. Boom, boom. With the sounds of cannon fire, Guo Xiao's launcher Burke took the lead in attacking. Yishu controlled Lord Grimm to dodge, having no way to retaliate. Guo Xiao fired his attacks at the very limit of his attack range. Although Lord Grimm could use a launcher's low-level skills, that didn't mean he had the full long range of a launcher. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. The extremely long attack range of a launcher was something they got only after switching classes. Their special skill learned when changing class at level 20. Artillery Mastery increased the range of all of the attacks and skills of this class, as well as the area they could damage. Senior's class doesn't have the range of a launcher. Guo Xiao actually had the time to type a message, but Burke's attacks never stopped. You want to lock me outside of this range? Yishu replied, seen through so quickly by Senior. It's a very obvious plan. But it's not that easy. After sending the message, Lord Grimm began to charge forward. Guo Xiao immediately had Burke jump backwards while simultaneously covering a large area with his firepower, stopping Lord Grimm from reaching him. Hit. Lord Grimm was covered by the large area of firepower, and Guo Xiao was excited. But I'm closer. Yishu replied as Lord Grimm ducked through the cannon fire. Although he suffered some damage, the distance between the two was pulled closer. That's not good. Guo Xiao's Burke used aerial cannon to increase their distance. You can't run. Quote. Under Yishu's controls, Lord Grimm used a slide kick, dodging the cannon shots coming right at him, and once he got up, he used a shincut. His character sprung forward amidst cold light, and then he followed with a charge, forcing his way through the stingers falling from the sky. 3 skills used in an instant, all attacks with high-speed movement. The distance between the two characters was instantly squeezed so that they were almost right next to each other. Senior is really tough, Guo Xiao cried, his character changing direction to get away. Lord Grimm suddenly used another skill. Against his controls, Burke started rushing toward Lord Grimm. He can even use taunt. Guo Xiao shouted. The taunt status forced the target to charge toward and attack only the taunter. Although it couldn't interrupt an attack, it was a powerful move to disrupt the opponent's rhythm, especially during a team competition when coordination was required. Right now neither side had a team, so there wasn't that effect, but Guo Xiao's Burke in this bit of time had no way to leave with his free will. Collapsing Mountain. Lord Grimm swung his blades down. Guo Xiao saw that he had no way to retreat, so he simply aimed his cannon at Lord Grimm. The cannonball flew out, but Lord Grimm's collapsing mountain suddenly changed to a falling light blade, and he plunged downward. After dodging the cannon shot, the falling light blade landed right upon Burke. Guo Xiao hurriedly tried to quick recover, as the taunt status finally wore off, but Lord Grimm was already right next to him. Slide kick. Guo Xiao's reaction was very fast. He actually had Burke use a sharpshooter's skill slide click. Even if he couldn't hit Lord Grimm, at least he could slide past and start pulling apart the distance again. But he hadn't expected Lord Grimm to step to the side. Before he started fully sliding, Lord Grimm stomped down in place, and at that moment, Burke slid right there. After Lord Grimm stepped on his opponent, the Myriad Manifestations umbrella shifted forms and sent a flurry of shots to his face. Sharpshooter skill, Punisher. You're about to lose, Yishu said. End chapter.